Hey guys, picture this scenario. It's 3 in the morning and you're still wide awake, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing through every possible financial situation that could hit you tomorrow. Your car could break down, your laptop might die, you could lose your job, maybe your pet needs emergency surgery. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you there's a specific dollar amount that could eliminate almost all of these midnight anxiety spirals and fundamentally change your life? Most people think financial milestones are just arbitrary numbers that rich people made up to make the rest of us feel inadequate. But here's something that might actually surprise you. There's real psychology and mathematics behind why certain amounts of money create dramatic shifts in your everyday life. And the first real game changer isn't $1 million or even $100,000, it's $10,000. My name is Suleiman and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide through financial challenges while others are constantly stressed about their bank balance. And here's the thing. I used to be one of you. If you've ever wondered what it actually feels like to have different amounts of money saved, and more importantly, how each milestone changes your decision-making, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if this video helps you out. I appreciate it in advance. Now, before we get into what makes $10,000 so special, let's paint a picture of what life looks like without it. You know that feeling when you're at the grocery store mentally calculating whether to grab the quality product or just go with the cheapest option? Or when your friends suggest going out to dinner and you make up an excuse because you only have enough left for food for the rest of the week? This is the reality for millions of people living paycheck to paycheck. Every financial decision becomes a careful calculation. Every unexpected expense feels like a potential disaster. You're constantly playing defense with your money, you can't even dream about the future, and you don't have the starting capital to build any kind of passive income. But here's where things get interesting. There's a specific psychological transformation that happens when you save your first $10,000, and it has absolutely nothing to do with buying expensive things. In fact, most people who reach this milestone don't dramatically change their spending habits at all. The real shift is much more subtle and much more powerful. The first thing that changes is your relationship with risk. When you have zero savings, every decision feels dangerous. Taking a new job, moving to a different city, even planning a vacation becomes a massive source of stress because you know that one wrong move could set you back a month or two. But when you have $10,000 sitting in your account, those same decisions suddenly feel manageable. You're not going to quit your job tomorrow and become a professional juggler, but you might finally have the confidence to go after that promotion you've been thinking about for months. You might be willing to invest in a course or certification that could boost your earning potential. The safety net doesn't make you reckless, but it does give you permission to look forward instead of just trying to survive until the next paycheck. And something fascinating also happens to your brain chemistry when you see a 5-figure balance for the first time. Neuroscientists have found that financial security actually reduces cortisol levels, which is your body's primary stress hormone. This means reaching $10,000 doesn't just change your finances, it literally changes how your body responds to everyday challenges. In a way, you've taken one more step toward real freedom. Think about the last time your check engine light came on. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that light might as well be a countdown timer to financial disaster. You immediately start calculating how you're going to pay for repairs, whether you'll have to put it on a credit card or borrow money from family. But when you have $10,000 saved, that same warning light becomes a simple annoyance. You're frustrated, sure, but you're not panicking. This shift from panic to mild annoyance might seem small, but it creates ripple effects throughout your entire life. When you're not constantly worried about money, you make better decisions across the board. You sleep better, you're more productive at work, you're more patient with your family and friends, and when someone calls you, you're not immediately thinking it's a debt collector. Financial stress affects every aspect of human behavior. Removing that stress unlocks mental energy you can redirect toward actually improving your situation. It's like rising from the ashes. But here's something most people don't realize about the $10,000 milestone. The majority of the benefit doesn't come from spending the money. It comes from knowing the money is there. This is what financial experts call the emergency fund effect, and it's probably one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance. An emergency fund isn't really about the emergencies. It's about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle emergencies. Most people who build up $10,000 in savings never actually spend it on emergencies. They spend it on opportunities. They invest in education. They start businesses, move to better cities, or simply gain the mental capacity to focus on growing their income instead of constantly worrying about covering basic expenses. There's also a confidence factor here that's hard to quantify but impossible to ignore. When you know you have money in the bank, you carry yourself differently, you negotiate better, and you're more willing to walk away from bad deals because you're not desperate. That confidence often opens doors to better job opportunities, healthier relationships, and better outcomes in life overall. Now you might be thinking, especially if you're currently struggling to save even $100 a month, that $10,000 sounds completely out of reach. But here's the interesting thing about human psychology. The hardest part isn't saving the money itself. The hardest part is developing the identity of someone who saves money. Most people approach saving like it's a temporary diet. They cut expenses dramatically for a few months, save aggressively, then burn out and go right back to their old habits. My biggest problem back in the day was spending even the last $10 in my account on takeout. That's the habit I had to break first. But people who successfully reach $10,000 don't think of saving as a temporary sacrifice. They think of it as becoming a different type of person. This identity shift is crucial because it affects every single financial decision you make. When you start seeing yourself as someone who saves money, you begin noticing expense-cutting opportunities you never saw before. You get more creative about finding additional income sources. You start thinking long-term instead of chasing immediate gratification. And the beautiful thing about this process is that it gets easier as you go. Saving your first $1,000 is brutal. It requires real lifestyle changes and constant willpower. But saving the second $1,000 is noticeably easier because you've already built the habits and the mindset. By the time you're working toward your fifth or sixth $1,000, the process feels almost automatic. It's just like losing weight. When you step on the scale and see the number going down, you get more and more motivated to keep going. It works exactly the same way with saving. Every time you see that bank balance climbing, the motivation just keeps building. There's also a mathematical reality that makes $10,000 particularly powerful. This amount covers the vast majority of unexpected expenses that derail people financially. Car repairs, medical bills, job loss, family emergencies. Most of these situations can be resolved for less than $10,000, which means that once you hit this milestone, you're effectively immune to most of the financial disasters that keep people trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. But perhaps the most significant change that happens when you save your first $10,000 is how you start thinking about money itself. Instead of seeing it as something that just disappears from your paycheck every month, you start viewing it as a tool that multiplies your options. Before you have savings, money feels scarce and finite. Every dollar spent is gone forever. Sometimes it even creates guilt, like you're thinking, I could have done something better with that money. But when you have $10,000 working as your financial foundation, you start to understand that money can actually create more money. This is where people begin getting interested in concepts like investing, side hustles, and passive income. Not because they suddenly became financial geniuses, but because they finally have the mental space to think beyond just covering their basic expenses. When you stop worrying about rent, you can start thinking about retirement accounts. When grocery stress disappears, you can start researching the stock market. You stop thinking about just surviving and start thinking about how to actually grow. Here's something that might blow your mind. A person with $10,000 saved is actually closer to financial independence than someone with zero savings, even if that second person earns twice as much. Why? Because the saver has developed the most important skill in wealth building. And that skill isn't earning money, it's keeping money. You probably know people who make six-figure salaries but are somehow always broke. Expensive cars, luxury apartments, restaurants that charge $20 for a salad but zero savings. On the other hand, you might know someone who makes $40,000 a year but has built serious savings by being intentional about their spending, like your landlord who owns 10 properties. The difference isn't income, it's mindset. And saving $10,000 is like a masterclass in developing the right financial mindset. You learn to tell the difference between wants and needs. You get skilled at reducing expenses without feeling deprived. Most importantly, you develop patience for delayed gratification, which is probably the single most valuable financial skill anyone can learn. Now, let's talk about what $10,000 can actually do for you in practical terms. First, it covers almost any car repair short of needing a completely new engine. Most automotive emergencies cost between $500 and $3,000. With $10,000 in the bank, car problems shift from financial disasters to minor inconveniences. Medical emergencies also become manageable. Even without great insurance, most urgent care visits, emergency room trips, or minor procedures fall within this range. You're not going to cover major surgery with $10,000, but you can handle the vast majority of unexpected health issues that pop up. And job loss, which is probably the scariest financial scenario for most people, becomes something you can actually survive. $10,000 gives you roughly 3 to 6 months of breathing room to find new work, depending on your expenses. That's enough time to be selective about your next opportunity instead of desperately taking the first offer that comes along. That's what freedom looks like, my friend. You go from being chosen to being the one who chooses. But here's where it gets really interesting. $10,000 doesn't just protect you from disasters, it actually creates opportunities that wouldn't exist otherwise. Say you hear about a certification program that could boost your salary by $10,000 a year, but it costs $2,000 upfront. Without savings, that's impossible. With your financial foundation, it's an obvious investment. Or maybe a friend is starting a business and looking for a small investor. Without savings, all you can do is wish them luck. But when you can see what's in your pocket, you start seeing opportunities too. With $10,000, you have the option to be part of something that could change your financial trajectory. I'm not saying you should dump your entire emergency fund into your buddy's crypto scheme, but having options feels incredibly different from having no options at all. The psychological impact extends beyond financial decisions too. When you have money saved, you sleep better, and I mean this literally. Studies show that people with emergency funds report significantly better sleep quality than those without savings. Financial stress turns out to be one of the leading causes of insomnia, and eliminating that stress has immediate health benefits. Your relationships improve as well. Money stress is cited as one of the primary causes of divorce and family conflict. When you're not constantly worried about bills, you have more emotional energy to invest in the people you care about. You become less irritable, less anxious, and more present in your relationships. There's also something to be said for the confidence boost that comes with having money in the bank. You walk into job interviews differently when you know you don't desperately need the position. You're more likely to negotiate salary and benefits because you're not coming from a place of fear. That confidence often results in better job offers and higher pay, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates your financial progress. But let's address the elephant in the room. If you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, saving $10,000 might sound completely out of reach. The good news is that you don't need to save it all at once. In fact, trying to save too aggressively often backfires because it's just not sustainable. The most successful savers I know started with ridiculously small amounts, maybe $50 a month, maybe even $25. The key is consistency, not the size of the contribution. Once you build the habit of saving something every single month, you can gradually increase the amount as your income grows or as you find ways to cut expenses. Here's a reality check that might motivate you. The average American spends over $3,000 a year on coffee, dining out, and convenience purchases. If you could redirect just 1/3 of that towards savings, you'd hit $10,000 in less than 3 years. Instead of eating out 4 times a month, maybe cut it down to 2. The difference between someone who builds savings and someone who doesn't usually comes down to awareness and intention, not income level. So there you have it. $10,000 isn't just a number in your bank account. It's a complete psychological transformation that touches every single aspect of your life. From sleeping better at night to walking into job interviews with real confidence instead of desperation, this milestone creates a domino effect that most people never see coming. If your bank balance right now looks more like a phone number from the 1950s, don't panic. Start small, stay consistent, and remember that the person you become while saving your first $10,000 is infinitely more valuable than the money itself. And I want to leave you with something from one of my favorite comedians. He said, "Luck will always come knocking at your door, but when it does, what matters most is how much is in your pocket." If you have money, it's called opportunity. If you have nothing, it's called bad luck. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.